This video is on online banks. So what exactly is an online bank? An online bank is just a bank that does not have physical locations for you to go into and do your business. Does not have physical buildings meant for customers to come in and do banking. But uh, although online banks do not have physical locations, online banks and your traditional banks with physical locations have a lot of things in common. One, both of them are financial institutions. An institution is an organization. Financial means it has to do with money. So both online banks and your traditional banks are both organizations that deal with money. They provide a lot of the same services. You can have a checking account, saving account with both online and traditional banks. They will make loans to you, car loans and student loans. Both of them offer to sell you CDs. Both of them have credit cards to offer, debit cards. For both an online bank and your traditional bank, you can do a lot of the managing online. For both online and traditional banks, you can deposit checks using their app. You can move around money. You can pay bills. You can view your old transactions or your current transactions. Both traditional banks and online banks have the same sort of insurance from the federal government, FDIC insurance. Both of these banks are for profit, and this is generally true for both types of banks, that they have customer service 24 hours a day. This mainly depends on how big the bank is, not whether or not it is online or traditional. Although they provide many of these same services, there are differences between an online bank and a traditional bank and what they offer. The main difference between these two types of banks stems from the fact that traditional banks have physical locations you can go into, and online banks do not. Because online banks do not have physical locations for you to go into, it is difficult to deposit cash into an account. Easy for you to deposit checks into both. You can just scan it with an app, but hard to deposit cash. Also, since there's no physical location to go to, if you need or want to talk to someone face to face, it's pretty much not going to happen with an online bank. However, because online banks do not have these physical locations and do not have to pay for those physical locations, they're able to save money on the rent for those physical locations and for the staff that would be at those physical locations. And the online bank takes that money that they save and they use it in other ways that benefit you. So, for example, if you have a savings account with an online bank, usually they will give you a higher interest rate on your savings, so you earn more on that savings. Also, online banks will usually have lower fees or fewer of them. And if you're borrowing money from a bank, say for example, you're borrowing for a car loan from an online bank compared to a traditional bank, usually your online bank will charge you a lower interest rate, so you don't have to pay as much to borrow that money. However, one benefit of traditional banks, because they have physical locations, they almost always have more ATMs. Online banks sometimes join organizations that have ATMs so that then their customers can access those ATMs, but that really depends on where you are. While one part of the US might have many ATMs for that online bank, another part of the US might have none. Another thing that's different between traditional banks and online banks, traditional banks tend to offer more products and services. So while we said that they both offer student loans and car loans, Online banks usually do not get involved in real estate loans or business loans, although some do. Also, traditional banks tend to have check writing involved in it. So for every traditional bank, you can definitely get checks, and so you can just write on the checks when you need them. For online banks, it's a maybe. Some online banks do, some online banks do not. And some online banks do something a little bit different. Instead of just giving you a checkbook or a bunch of paper to write your checks on. Those are the general differences and the good things and bad things about having an online bank compared to a traditional bank.